This episode, we're looking at the history of another of those Jurassic juggernauts, the Dinobots. These are the basics on the terrifying pterosaur whose fearsome face hides a kind soul, Swoop. The toy that would become the original Swoop was first released in 1984 in the Japanese toy line Diaclone. The figure was part of a subline of transforming prehistoric animals called the Dinosaur Robo and converted into a robotic pteranodon. All 5 Dinosaur Robo were imported by Hasbro and released as part of the second year of the Transformers line in 1985 as the Dinobots, a team of powerful, rebellious Autobots who resented the command of Optimus Prime. The Diaclone Pteranodon was blue in colour, but for its release as Swoop, the toy was changed to red. Most classic media accurately reflected this, but the Transformers cartoon erroneously depicted Swoop with the Diaclone colours, and its influence has led to most major modern incarnations of the character being blue as well. A profile was written for Swoop by Marvel Comics writer Bob Budiansky, which characterised him as a kind, good-natured bot. But sadly, nobody knew it, because his alternate mode was considered so horrifying that no one would get close enough to him to find out. Kept at arm's length even by his fellow Dinobots, all Swoop could do to comfort himself was to put his hideous appearance to work for the Autobot cause, using it to strike fear into Decepticons on the battlefield. However, this tragic idea wasn't explored in any of Swoop's major media appearances, with both the cartoon and the Marvel comic book each taking their own unique approach to the character. In the cartoon, Swoop and the Dinobots were built on Earth by the Autobots, and were primitive bots of low intelligence. Swoop was part of the second batch of Dinobots constructed, alongside Snarl, and the pair's first mission was to battle their predecessors, Grimlock, Slag, and Sludge, who had been tricked into working for the Decepticons. The Dinobots enjoyed multiple showcase episodes across the show's first 2 seasons, their great power and insubordinate attitudes often causing as much trouble for their fellow Autobots as they did for their enemies. Swoop got the solo spotlight in the 2-part episode Desertion of the Dinobots, in which he and human allies Spike and Carly braved the dangers of Cybertron's depths to rescue the other Dinobots from Decepticon captivity. The continued availability of the Dinobots toys in 1986 earned them supporting roles in that year's The Transformers the Movie and the subsequent 3rd season of the cartoon. But these played Swoop and his teammates as more comedic characters, their lack of smarts now exploited more for laughs. In the comic, on the other hand, the Dinobots were regular bots of normal intelligence, who had been part of the crew of the Autobots' spaceship when it crash-landed on Earth 4 million years ago. They were given their dino modes by the ship's computer when it reactivated them to battle the Decepticon Shockwave, but they wound up trapped in a tar pit, where they remained until being found and reactivated in the modern day. The Dinobots were favourites of British writer Simon Furman, and starred in many of the exclusive stories that he wrote for the United Kingdom's version of the comic, with Swoop in particular playing a large role in several of them. First, almost sacrificing his life to save his fellow Dinobots from the rampaging battle drone, Guardian. Then, temporarily falling under the mental control of human scientist Peter Morris, who used him to attack the Autobots. Most notably, Furman crafted a unique backstory for Swoop, revealing that long ago, back on Cybertron, he had originally been named Dive Bomb, but when he was defeated in battle by a Decepticon, the Con marked the victory by stealing his name and using it as his own, trapping Swoop in a spiral of anger and shame that drove him to hunt his old enemy down on Earth to settle the score. Eventually, the discontinuation of the Dinobots toys in 1987 led to them being phased out of the comic, some of the many victims taken offline by a cosmically empowered Starscream. But in 1990, Furman brought Swoop and his teammates back to life to star in new adventures throughout the comic's final year. Now, while all the other Dinobots would either receive new toys or re-releases of their old toys in the early 90s, Swoop was the one Dinobot that Hasbro didn't bring back. A gaudy recolor of his original figure was designed for 1993's Generation 2 toy line, but was never produced. Nevertheless, his absence from store shelves didn't stop Simon Furman from continuing to include Swoop in new stories he wrote throughout the decade, for Marvel's Generation 2 comic and the Transformers conventions, BotCon and Transforce. The convention stories brought Swoop into the world of Beast Wars, depicting him as the last living Autobot on a far future Cybertron, and told the tale of how he sacrificed himself to save a dying Transformer by fusing his body and spark with theirs, merging with the young warrior to become the composite being Windraiser, a recolor of Beast Wars Wolf Eagle hybrid Silverbolt, available exclusively at BotCon 1999. Swoop would eventually return to toy stores in 2003's Transformers Dinobots line, in the form of a recolor of the Beast Wars figure Laserbeak, who had an organic Pteranodon alternate mode. And after this, the pace of new Swoop toys would quickly increase. 2004's Transformers Energon featured the first all-new figure of the character, sold in a 2-pack with Grimlock and able to combine with him into the larger robot Mega Dinobot. In 2006, a tiny Minicon version of Swoop was released in Transformers Classics. And in 2008, Swoop was introduced into the world of Transformers Animated, a series that marked his return to TV screens for the first time since the original cartoon. In Animated, the Dinobots were theme park animatronics, brought to life by the power of the ancient Cybertronian relic, the Allspark. Unable to speak and possessing little more intelligence than an animal, Swoop lived in seclusion with his fellow Dinobots on an island in Lake Erie. But their simple minds often led the group to fall under the sway of villains seeking to exploit their power. Other significant new media appearances by Swoop in the 21st century have included comic books from publishers such as Dreamwave Productions and IDW Publishing, and video games, featured as a playable character in both the handheld version of 2010's War for Cybertron and its 2012 sequel, Fall of Cybertron. In the game's version of their story, Swoop and his teammates gained their Dino modes when they were captured and experimented on by Shockwave during the war on Cybertron. Tie-in comics continued the team's story after the games, and saw Swoop briefly turned against his comrades when he was captured and temporarily reprogrammed to be loyal to Shockwave. Swoop joined the world of the live-action movies in the 2014 film Age of Extinction, for which he was redesigned as a two-headed pterosaur. But due to Hasbro temporarily losing the trademark on his name, the movie character had to be given the new name Strafe. As seen in the film, Strafe and the Dinobots were ancient Cybertronian knights who were captured by the bounty hunter Lockdown. After being freed by Optimus Prime, they helped the Autobots defend Hong Kong against a Decepticon attack, during which Strafe aided Bumblebee in defeating his evil doppelganger, Stinger. Age of Extinction really thrust the Dinobots back to the forefront of the franchise, leading to a lot of new Swoop toys over the next few years. But as with the movie character, the trademark issue required many of them to also use alternate names, including Strafe and Ptero. Thankfully, Swoop's original name was reinstated in time for the new figure released in 2018's Power of the Primes. Based on the original Generation 1 toy, and available in both blue and red variants, the toy could combine with the other Dinobots in the line to form the giant robot Volcanicus. These figures earned Swoop and his teammates appearances in Machinima's tie-in Power of the Primes webtoon. And a few years later, in 2021, they also served as inspiration for the version of the Dinobots featured in Transformers Cyberverse. Cyberverse significantly reimagined Swoop, depicting the character as a female robot, an enthusiastic young scientific engineer who was the brains of the Dinobots, even if she did have trouble getting the others to listen to her. In this series, Swoop, Slug, Snarl, and Sludge were survivors from a Cybertronian colony planet that had been destroyed by a gang of mercenaries. Pursuing the villains to Cybertron, the young Dinobots allied with their hero, Grimlock, and used the power of the mystical Enigma of Combination to merge with him into Volcanicus to save the planet from meeting the same fate as their world. Swoop's Cyberverse toy went a different way, though. Rather than combine with the other Dinobots, it came in a 2-pack with Bumblebee, and combined with him to form Bumbleswoop. Recent new Swoop toys have included a small figure in the Legacy toy line in 2023, part of a range of small-scale combining Dinobot toys able to merge into Volcanicus, and a large figure in the Studio Series toy line in 2024, based on his appearance in the original cartoon. Most recently, in 2026, a recolor of Studio Series Swoop was released, based on the unproduced Generation 2 figure. It's a toy that harkens back to a time when it felt like Hasbro was leaving Swoop behind, quite unlike today, when, after 40 years of new toys and stories, he's second only to team leader Grimlock as the most distinct and memorable member of the Dinobots. And those are the basics on Swoop. How does he stack up next to the other Dinobots for you? Rank him in the comments. For more Transformers history and lore, make sure you subscribe and check out my archive of episodes, and get early access to each new video by becoming a channel member or a Patreon.